And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. This is another episode of our special series, Transfer Tuesday. I did Transfer Thursday because of the fact that it was a busy week for Fulham, but really it's going to be on Tuesdays that I'm going to be talking about the transfer speculation with Fulham and some other topics as well. So for the next 15 to 20 minutes, I have several things I'm going to be sharing on this quick show. Also, want to mention that I have a couple of polls I'm going to go through. I actually launched a couple polls this morning and I'll be sharing the results of them. One of them in this series of the transfer Windows special shows I am doing, I'm going to be talking about a former Fulham Academy player that has moved on and what the result was. This week, it's Pat Roberts. It should be interesting to go over the poll results of that and talk a little bit about what has happened to Pat Roberts since he left Fulham. That's all part of this show. Before we get going with the actual show, always want to mention, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters and supporters of other clubs find us. Lastly, want to mention we have so many shows coming up. I have a show tomorrow previewing the upcoming match for Fulham against Chelsea with a good friend of mine, Alex Goldberg from the Byline. He has a huge following on Twitter. It's Alex Goldberg _ Please do follow him. He has some serious views on Chelsea. He's going to be joining me tomorrow at 5 p.m. UK time, noon on the East Coast here in America. And I cannot wait for that. Also, we will have a show after the Chelsea match of Cottage Talk Full-Time with the return of Emilio Danello, the Fulham Shadow, along with Steve Reynolds. That should be fun. And hopefully we have something really positive to talk about. Okay. Well, without further ado, let's get to the show. And let's talk about some transfer speculation. This isn't positive transfer speculation. And this is transfer speculation that I'm not putting a little stock on, but we're going to talk about it anyways. Reportedly, Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool are interested in João Palhinha. And this actually was a story from Dean Jones from Give Me Sport. And Dean is someone that I actually really believe in and believe that he's saying some things that he truly believes are true. I believe in his journalist integrity. So I'm just going to share what Dean wrote. This is from Give Me Sport. This is from the other day. Quote, one of the league's most consistent performers this season. Fulham know they have an absolute gem in the 27-year-old Portuguese international and absolutely do not want to lose him. He joined in the summer for £20 million, and the Whites have had a great season. At the current rate, they might even have a chance at qualifying for European football. He's loving his role in the team, but we should be anticipating knocks at the door in the summer. His consistency is almost unrivaled across the league for players in the position, and it's understood that Liverpool and Tottenham are two of the clubs casting an eye over him at the moment. Liverpool had him on their radar even before his switch to Craven Cottage, unquote. Okay, that's from Dean Jones. And like I mentioned, I have a lot of respect for Dean. I don't doubt his sourcing on this. So I think that's to be true. But here's a key little part from what Dean was mentioning. He's expecting more of this to happen over the summer. And I could see that happening. For me, right now in January, I don't see this even remotely happening. In fact, I'm going to use a quote from the movie Animal House. Mr. Butowski, 0.0. That's how much I believe that Liverpool or Tottenham have a chance. 0.0. I don't see that happening at all. We shall see if I'm right or if I'm wrong, but that's where I'm going on this. I don't see either club offering enough money or even Fulham wanting to do that. Fulham don't want to do this. It would be ridiculous. It would be stupid to even think about doing this. You might have to approach it over the summer. Maybe you do. But again, I don't see this happening in January. I still don't see it happening this summer, but things can happen quickly when it comes to the Premier League. So we'll see what happens. But right now, I don't see João Palhinha as a flight risk at all. In fact, just I wanted to check up on this because I don't know if he has a release clause. I did actually check with the journalist, and this journalist doesn't believe he does. We don't know for sure, but if he doesn't have a release clause at all, I don't see this even remotely happening. Definitely not in January. I just don't see it. So we're going to start there. Okay. Next, let's move on. Let's talk about Fulham could be looking at Max Aarons as an alternative to Cedric Soares, according to the Daily Mail and a couple of other players. So this is something that could happen, but I believe that Fulham would be looking at several different right backs. Cedric Soares could be an issue with his wage demands. If that's the case, I believe Fulham will be looking at other places. And I have no problem with them looking at the Norwich City right back. Not at all, along with other alternatives. I don't care that he's in the championship. He's played in the Premier League. I would be looking at him. So we'll see how this happens. I put a little stock in this because I think Fulham are looking at several different right backs, not just Cedric Soares or the right back at Roma. I think they're probably also looking at Max Aarons and others as well. In fact, there are a couple other championship right backs. Apparently, they are looking at, according to the Daily Mail, and Simon Jones. So I put a little stock in this. I actually believe this speculation. So good article from the Daily Mail. Okay, let's move on from that. Now let's talk about this. There's been some speculation out there that Rodrigo Muniz might be going to a team in Spain if the situation with Middlesbrough and Fulham does not work out, because right now Rodrigo Muniz is not playing for Middlesbrough. He isn't. They just signed a striker. So I give this some weight. We'll see what happens. Like I said, this is speculation. I think it's in the best interest of Muniz and Fulham to potentially look at removing this loan deal with Middlesbrough and moving him on to potentially a Spanish side. I think that's actually a good move for his development. I think that makes more sense than sitting on the bench at Middlesbrough and not playing. So I'm actually all for that. That, to me, makes perfect sense for Rodrigo Muniz and Fulham. We shall see. Also want to mention, I don't know if anyone else saw this, I did see some speculation today with Anthony Knockaert in Huddersfield Town. And certainly that might be a good place for Anthony Knockaert to land. More speculation with players, and I thought I would just mention that. I didn't want to talk just a little bit about Anthony Knockaert. And I wish him the best. I hope he can find another side that fits him. Okay. So let's move on. And now let's talk about a couple of polls that I did. So let's start with this one because I find this one interesting. Before we talk about Pat Roberts, let's talk about this. Besides Fabio Carvalho and Harvey Elliott, which player who left for little money or on a free hurt the club the most, hurt Fulham the most? And the choices were Dan Burn, Moussa Dembele, Matt O'Reilly, and Spence, who is currently at Tottenham Hotspur. So I had a good amount of votes. I had 306 votes. Dan Burn is at 6.9%. Matt O'Reilly is at 26.1%. Spence is at 2.9%. Moussa Dembele, the striker Moussa Dembele, is at 64.1%. That is a good amount of votes. And I actually think that just shows you what people think about with Moussa Dembele. I think Fulham missed Moussa Dembele. I actually had Tony Khan on Cottage Talk a while back, and he admitted that it was too late to keep Moussa Dembele when he got involved. That was his take on it, that it was just too late. He couldn't make it happen because Dembele made up his mind, ended up going to Celtic. He's now in France with Lyon, and best of luck to him. I agree with it. I think it is Moussa Dembele, but there's an argument to be made for Matt O'Reilly. I think it was a mistake not to play him more when he was at Fulham, and now he's thriving at Celtics. So best of luck to him. Best of luck to all the players. Dan Burn actually has had a very good Premier League career, so that's interesting as well. Look at some of these players that Fulham had at one point, and now they're all gone and they're all thriving. So congratulations to them all. But I think the one that hurts the most for me will always be Moussa Dembele, but Matt O'Reilly is right behind it. Okay. So now let's go to the topic at hand. Like I said, I'm going to do this each and every week. A former academy player who's moved on. What happened to him? What are the results? So let's now talk about Pat Roberts. Okay. And I'm not actually going to, if you're watching live, I'm going to share the results of my poll that I did because these poll results are interesting. So I'm just going to pull this up and I will share the poll results dealing with Pat Roberts. So here we go. So as I look and I look at the options here, Fulham, Manchester City, Patrick Roberts. Who was the biggest loser with the Patrick Roberts transfer to Manchester City several years ago? Okay, the results are this. There's 166 votes. Fulham was at 6.6%. Manchester City was at 15.7%. Pat Roberts was at 77.7%. That is massive. And I think that's the real story behind it. He's the biggest loser in all of this. And it's unfortunate because I think he had a bright future. Here's a player that should have stayed at Fulham. Absolutely. He wasn't ready to go. Sorry. Wasn't ready to go. He went to the wrong club. I understand the allure of going to a club like Man City, but they are loaded. Even back then, they were loaded with talent. So what did they end up doing? They end up sending him out on loan to Celtic. And then he ended up going to Norwich. Then it didn't work out there. He ends up in all places, Derby County. And then finally, he is where he is now. This is how far he dropped. He played League One last season with Sunderland and is currently playing with Sunderland. Here's a player that I would love to know if he feels he made a mistake by leaving Fulham. I think he did because I don't think he was the finished article. And maybe he would be if he stayed at Fulham. Maybe his career would be completely different. So I'm going with the biggest loser being Pat Roberts. I do wish him the best. I hope he does well at Sunderland. I hope it all works out for him. But in my mind, he made a mistake here. And loads of talent. In fact, I read an article, and I believe it talked about the manager for Sunderland saying that he could be the most talented player in the championship. Could be. But the problem with him is maybe it just hasn't come through. He hasn't been able to put it all together. So it's a cautionary tale, Pat Roberts. He went for the glitz and glamour of Man City, and I think it backfired on him. I think he would have a completely different career if he stayed at Fulham. That's my opinion on that. Okay. One last topic. Now, there's just some talk on Twitter. I wouldn't even call this speculation. But if you're watching live, we're going to talk about this coming up in just a few minutes, in a few seconds. Coming up next, I'm going to ask the question: should Fulham consider a loan move for Fabio Carvalho? Okay, to end this quick abbreviated show, I'm asking the question: should Fulham consider a loan move for Fabio Carvalho? Dare I say maybe even try to buy him back? And I'm going to say it right now. Yes. Now, there are some sites out there saying that there's speculation on Fulham making a loan move. There's no real quote-unquote viable site that has the speculation of Carvalho and Fulham right now. This is more, I believe, fans from the Fulham side wanting this to happen, including myself. I would like Fabio to come back. He's not playing regularly at Liverpool. My biggest gripe with this situation is they play a certain style. He doesn't fit that style under Klopp. They don't play with a number 10. Fabio's a number 10. Now, the argument for Fulham is right now, Andres Pereira is a number 10. Why bring him back? Because you already have a player at that position. Well, that's an interesting situation, and I would like to take that on because I think that you could actually, in the system Fulham are playing, you could play Fabio on the left if you wanted to, but you have Woolley in there. There are things that you could do. I would want to bring him back. I'd want to play him. Would he start? That's the £1 million question. I don't know, but I'd love to get him back at Fulham and see what putting that talent back on our club would mean. So I'm saying I would love this to happen. I hate to say it, I would ship our loanee, Dan James, back to Leeds United and bring back Fabio for that. I would do that. But maybe I'm in the minority. I would even make a move for a permanent deal. I think Fabio is a wonderful talent, and it's not being utilized at Liverpool. I expect him to go out on loan next season. I do. And if that's the case, what a waste. What a complete and utter waste of a talented kid. I say bring Fabio back to Fulham. And that's basically how I want to end the show. I do some comments, and that's how I'll really end the show. So let's see. Let's see what we got. I'm just going to share a couple comments. Wayne Walden says, yes, we should bring back Fabio to the Cottage tomorrow. Let's see. I'm just going to keep sharing some comments. Val says, I'm not sure if he would start every game, but would he accept that at Fulham? It's a great question, Val. I'm not sure. But he certainly isn't playing at Liverpool right now. He's not playing. He hasn't played in several matches. And I keep hearing how Klopp loves him and all this stuff, but he isn't playing. He is absolutely not playing. So that's where I'm going on that. So let's see. So that's going to do it for this quick episode of Cottage Talk. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's see. Oh, I got one more comment from my friend Steve Reynolds. Fabio back would upset the team. Interesting, Steve. I don't think it would. I don't think it would at all. In fact, I think it would enhance the team. I think there are players that would want him back. I disagree with you, Steve Reynolds, my friend. I disagree with you. I think it would be a good move to bring Fabio back. Maybe I'm in the minority on that. Okay. Well, like I mentioned, I'm going to wrap up this show of Cottage Talk. I hope you liked this transfer window show. Just want to mention, as always, to please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. We will have a preview Wednesday of the Chelsea match with my friend Alex Goldberg from the Byline. You can follow him on Twitter at @AlexGoldberg_. I think Alex has over 400,000 Twitter followers. I mean, it's crazy. So he has a huge following. I used to do a radio show with him. Yes, a podcast. So I look forward to having Alex back on Cottage Talk. It should be good. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, now part of the TalkSport Fan Network.